Hello everybody, my name is Dee and welcome to Books and Quirks. Today I'm going to be giving you my full wrap-up for the Summer Romance Book Bingo 2018. So if you've watched any of my videos before, you know that this was a summer-long readathon. It started in the beginning of June, although I didn't join until the middle of June, and it went until the end of August 31st. So yes. I'm pretty happy with my reading. I actually filled quite a bit of the board. I didn't get a full blackout, but I did get bingo on 3 rows. So let me just get right into it and just give you my wrap up. So I did a full mid update in July, so I will link that down below. I will mention the books again, but I'm not going to go into detail about them because I went into a lot of detail in that video. And if you want to know my feelings on any of those books or what I thought about them, you can link on the video in the description below, but I'll just quickly mention them. So all in all, I read 18 books, which is pretty great. I mean, I read other things in the summer aside from romance. I like a bit of variety when it comes to genres, but I read 18 romance novels alone, so that is pretty great, and I'm really happy with that. I do love romance as, you know, one of the many genres that I love, and it was just a good way to ramp up the romance that I've been reading because I hadn't read a whole lot this year until this came along, and I thought, what a great opportunity. I can knock off some great romances that I've been wanting to read and discover other ones that I didn't know about. So there were several challenges. I'll put the card up somewhere around here and you could see how I did. So for the challenge of read a romance with a cat or dog on the cover, I read Ever After by Rachel Lacey. I really loved this book, and again, I'll link my video for the mid-summer wrap-up down below. For the challenge of Read a Harlequin, I read Season of Wonder by Rayanne Thane, I think is how you say her name, and that was really cute as well, and it was like a wintry Christmas type romance. For the Read a Finalist, I read Now That You Mention It. This was one of my favorites of the whole summer. I absolutely loved it. It's a pretty new release, and it blew my mind. I absolutely loved it. For the challenge of read a book that is a standalone, I read Somewhere in Time by Richard Matheson. Again, this was the one book that I had on my TBR that was a reread. Read it when I was in high school and loved it so much. So cute. It's a time travel romance. For read a book with a author under a pseudonym is, sorry, I had to think about that for a second because I only wrote one word down here. Confessions of a Shopaholic. That is a classic. I'm sure you all know that book, and I absolutely loved it. I never read the book, and I just love Sophie Kinsella now. For the challenge of read a romance that is set at the beach, I read a ebook called Sand Dollar Cove by Nancy Nagel. I thought that book was okay. It was a little cute, but not one of my favorites. For read a book with a one-word title, I read Remembrance by Jude Deveraux. I've read Jude Deveraux before. She tends to write, from what I can tell, I've read 2 of her books now, time travel romances, which I absolutely love. So this was no exception to that. For read a contemporary romance, I read Rainy Day Friends by Jill Shalvis. This was another one where I hadn't read a Jill Shalvis book before, but she's a pretty famous romance author, and a lot of booktubers read her books, and I've always been interested, but I never got a chance. So this was a new release, and I read it, and I absolutely loved it. Oh my gosh. Oh my goodness. And for read a book that is part of a series, I read New York Actually by Sarah Morgan. This book was really cute. I've read Sarah Morgan before, so I knew I would love her. And I've read books in this Actually series before, so didn't disappoint. Really loved it. And the final book that I read Midsummer was Say You'll Remember Me by Katie McGarry. This is this was for the challenge of read a book where you loved the cover, or you bought just for the cover. I bought for the cover, but I also bought for the author, but I counted it anyway, and it was just great. A great book, a new release again, and I absolutely loved it. Okay, so let me get into the books that I've read since that wrap up, and I'll give you more of an in-depth look at it, an in-depth look at how I felt about it. Now, some of these books you will have seen in some of my Friday reads, but I'll mention them again. So the challenge of read a book with less than 10,000 ratings, I read My Mamma Mia Summer by Annie Robertson. I also read this as part of Booktubeathon, and when I read this, it only had 53 ratings because it was a brand new release. I read it within like a week of its coming out, and I really, really loved it. If you love romance, if you love musicals, if you love Mamma Mia, you will love this. Absolutely wonderful book, and I felt like I talked about it a lot, but this is about a woman who really has never taken a risk. She was brought up by her grandmother because her parents died when she was a little girl, and her grandmother has recently died. This woman is in her 20s, and she really relied so much on her grandmother, loved her grandmother so much that she really needed to do something, really needed to take a risk for once in her life and do something that her and her grandmother had always wanted to do, which was have their own Mamma Mia adventure in Greece based off of the movie. And yes, it is such a good book. There is a romance, but this is more a book, like the romance is kind of secondary. This more is a book about healing, about finding yourself, about taking some risks in your life and, evaluating, what will make you happy. And I really loved it. And this was just a joy to read. And I kept on singing Mamma Mia music throughout the entire thing. The next book I read was for the challenge of read a book that takes place in a small town. I'm just looking down at my notes, which is why you can see me looking down. And I read The Color of Love by Sharon Sala. This wasn't my favorite. I only gave this 3 stars. This is about a woman who, she was in an abusive marriage and her husband tried to kill her. So this all happens in the first 2 pages, so this is not a spoiler. It says it on the back blurb too. And so he goes to prison. She moves to a small town in Georgia called Blessings, and she tries to sort of rebuild her life and reinvent herself. She doesn't let anybody know about her past. And then trouble comes when her husband is let out of prison and gets his brother, and they try to find her to exact revenge. So this book was okay, like I said. The problem was that I really didn't get a chance to even know the characters that much. In the first 2 pages, already a lot has happened, and I have no idea, like, who these people are. And I don't know, I just wound up not connecting with them through the rest of the book as well. So I just thought it was okay, but it was it did have its cute moments. For the challenge of read a book that takes place in a major city, I read One in a Million by Lindsay Kelk. Absolutely loved this. Gave this 5 stars. This book takes place in London, and it is about a woman who is an advertising executive, and she owns her company with her friends, and she makes a bet with kind of this rival in the same building, and she bets him that she could take any man that walks in the door next and make him Instagram famous in 30 days. And this is loosely based off of My Fair Lady, but with the genders reversed. And I absolutely loved this. I want to read this again one day. It's so good. And I really loved the characters. I really loved the whole My Fair Lady things in there, and it was just great. And if you like My Fair Lady, if you like romances, you would definitely like this book. I thought the writing was also excellent. It flowed. I read this book in a day and a half. Like I read it half one day, half the next, and I just flew through it. And that just is a testament to the author's writing and how she pulls you in. So really loved this. So the next challenge was to read a book that features a musician, and I read Roomies by Christina Lauren. This is actually written by two authors. Christina Lauren is a combination of the two authors' names, and I absolutely love this. This is about a young woman that crushes on this musician that plays in the subway station that she takes every day. And through certain circumstances, she decides to, or I should say that she also works for a Broadway theater because her two uncles are Broadway theater producers, and they decide they have an opening for in their orchestra, and they decide to take a chance on this musician. The only problem is he's from Ireland and his visa expired 6 months ago. So, or 6 years ago rather, 6 years ago. So he has been here illegally, and they have to try to find if there's a solution for that. This is such a cute story, and I love Broadway. I'm a Broadway fanatic. I'm a musical fanatic. I love the whole setting, the whole story. It pulled me in, and I want to read more. I want to see if there's more books by this duo, Christina Lauren, and see if I can read more books, because this was so good. So good. The next category was to read a book with more than 10,000 ratings, and for that I read On Mystic Lake by Kristen Hanna. This book was wonderful. It is about a middle-aged woman or a middle-aged married couple. Their daughter is just leaving to go off to, like, she just graduated college and she's going off to live in Europe for a while. The husband asks his wife Annie for a divorce. So this book is about Annie Robertson, and she decides to go back home to her hometown and reconnects with the one-time boy that she was in love with after high school. So it's a really cute book, really great story. This was my first Krista Hanna book. I feel like this was the summer of firsts in terms of authors that I've never read before. And I know she's a very famous author. A lot of people love her books, and I was able to get this for like a couple of dollars. So it was such a good buy, and I'm really glad I read it, and now I want to read more by her because this was a really cute, moving story. For the category of read a romantic suspense, I read The Lucky Ones by Tiffany Reese. This book I would categorize as a thriller or mystery. There was a romance in it, and it's on all of the romance lists on Goodreads, but there was a romance in it, but it's so like on the back burner and not the focal point of the story. The story is a mystery and thriller, in my opinion. That's how I would categorize it. But The Lucky Ones is about a woman who, her parents died when she was a little girl at about age 7, and was shortly thereafter adopted by a famous neurosurgeon. And he adopts and fosters a lot of kids. He's a great dad. It's seemingly a wonderful life. He lives in this big mansion on the water, and it's idyllic, seemingly. And then one day she is in an accident. She falls down the stairs, and when she wakes up, she is no longer with the neurosurgeon. She is with her only living relative, which is a great aunt who's about like 70, in her 70s. And she was never really close to her aunt, never knew her aunt, but her aunt takes her, and she's never allowed to mention the doctor or the house again when she tries to ask her aunt questions. This is when she was 12 years old. They won't answer. So the whole mystery is surrounding, what happened that day, because she thinks that she was pushed. So the story starts at that point, and it was just great. It started off as just a really strange mystery, and a lot of strange things happened, and wanting to unfold what exactly happened that night, because she has amnesia. She doesn't remember like a week out of her life. And it was so good. Towards the end, it gets more like thriller, kind of a little bit, I don't know if scary is the word, but creepy, and just creeped out and weirded out. And I really loved it. Like I said, I wouldn't categorize this as a romance, but it is on Goodreads. But I would categorize it as a mystery thriller. And if you love those types of books, I'd definitely give this one a go. The next category was to read a book that was published in 2018. And this was a book that I read recently, and that was All Your Perfects by Colleen Hoover. I actually listened to this on audiobook, and I just had to look up the narrator, but the narrator is Madeline Mabie. Now, I will preface this by saying I read a lot of Colleen Hoover books throughout the years. I've loved them all. I own most of them. I think there's only maybe one or two that I haven't read of hers, and I love Colleen Hoover. However, I know I'm going to be in the minority here, so I'm not going to bash the book or anything, but I did not enjoy it. I think a lot of it had to do with the narrator. I didn't enjoy the narrator's monotone voice, and I didn't like the way she voiced the husband in the novel. So let me start by saying this book starts off about a married couple that have been married for almost 10 years, and their marriage is crumbling. They're plagued by a lot of issues, the big one being infertility. They're unable to conceive a child. And Quinn, the wife, she just falls into a big depression that goes on for years. They don't communicate with one another, so that just exacerbates the issue. And I really felt for this couple. So I will say that. I really felt for Quinn and Graham. I know people who have dealt with that, but I just did not enjoy the story. Frankly, I thought it was repetitive and boring, and I thought the chapters alternated from then, about how they first met and fell in love and their beginning of their relationship, and the now of what's happening now. And I didn't enjoy that aspect either. Usually I don't mind when it alternates chapters like that, but for this book, it didn't work. I don't know what it was exactly. It kind of threw me out a lot, and I just couldn't. Maybe if I had read the physical book, I would feel different, but I just couldn't connect with these characters. And I won't say anymore. If you like Colleen Hoover, I would really go to Goodreads and read a lot of the reviews, because there's a lot of 5 stars out there. I think most of the reviews are like 5 or 4 stars. It just, something about it just didn't work for me, and I wound up giving it 2. And finally, the final book that this was a little bit of a cheat, because I actually didn't finish it by August 31st, but a little bit after, but I started it on August, the last week of August, and that was The Wedding Date. This is by Jasmine Guillory. I'll put a picture. This was on ebook, and I absolutely loved this book, and I don't know, I cheated a little bit by counting it, but I read most of it before the 31st. This book is about 2 people that meet on an elevator. There's a power outage, and they get stuck on the elevator together, and they wind up spending, I think it was like a few hours together. It wasn't like a whole day or anything. It was a few hours, but enough for them to talk, because what else are you going to do on an elevator? I thought that part was really cute. And then after they get off, after the power outage, they can't stop thinking about each other, and he asks her to accompany him as a date at his ex's wedding. It's really strange. And I thought it was really cute. I really loved it. I love the characters. There was a lot of diversity in this book also, which I appreciated and loved. And yeah, I just really liked it. I came upon this book by accident, and decided to give it a go. And it was, I mean, it wasn't anything super special, but it was just a cute contemporary romance, and I really enjoyed it. So I'm showing you a picture of my card. As you can see, I made bingo on 4 rows. If I count that last book, it's 4 rows. And I'm really happy with that. You know, I didn't, so all in all, I thought it was a great readathon. I hope it happens again. I enjoyed it so much, and I'm really happy with everything that I did. So that is all I have for you. I hope you have a wonderful day. Again, the link will be in the description below for any of the books that I mentioned in the first half, and I will see you all very, very soon. Bye.